Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Say Gay podcast. My name is Toby Couple, if y'all already don't know. And this is I think we're on episode 7, you guys. So, as you guys can tell, I am alone. I'm back to a solo podcast for this week. I had Nick on last week, and you guys, the feedback from that one is so good. I really want to apologize again about the visual not being available just because there was some issues. I don't know what is wrong with my phone, but every time I try to do the visual podcast, I feel like there's always issues. So that was our issue last week, was there was no visual. So I do apologize about that, you guys. But the feedback on that one was really, really good. You guys really seemed to like having a guest on. So for the next, actually after this week, the next few weeks, I do plan on having different types of guests because I think I told you guys last week, I'm actually going back to Wisconsin in about a week. So I will be in my hometown. So I'm going to get some interviews done. You guys, I'm going to bring my mom on the podcast. I'm so freaking excited because I talk about her all the time, you guys. My mom's like my best friend and she is like the number one ally in the entire freaking world. So I am going to be bringing her on. But you guys, I am excited to be back this week with another episode. I want to talk about, well, first things first, you guys. I talked about this last week. I am going to have some merch dropping very soon, you guys. So I'm working with a bunch of different companies to see what looks best and whatnot. So be on the watch out on my the Say Gay podcast Instagram because I'm going to be announcing a lot of the merch on there. I've asked for a lot of feedback on what the merch should look like. So if you guys are following that podcast there or following the Instagram, I've been posting a lot of it on there. So merch is coming soon. I plan on making t-shirts and sweatshirts to start with, and then we're going to kind of move on to other things from there. But I just want to, make sure I can get all of that good to go before I, jump completely into doing everything else. So merch coming soon, you guys. Message me if you want to pre-order something. I don't know. I'll probably do a pre-order before I get everything in, once I have the design and everything laid out. So yeah, I'm excited, you guys. I can't wait to have merch of my own just because I love the hoodies and stuff. I love wearing a good hoodie. I'm literally wearing a hoodie today. And I love having a good comfy hoodie. So I'm excited to make those and everything for everybody. So merch is coming soon, you guys. But today's episode, I want to talk about relationships and dating. I feel like there is, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to relationships and dating, especially in the gay world versus the non-gay world, dating women versus men. There's so much to talk about with this topic. So I want to talk about my experience with it and kind of some tips and stuff that I have. Obviously I'm 24 right now. And so I've actually been in a relationship for the past almost 6 years now. And so growing up for me, dating was, I don't want to say it was bad. I went through a lot of shitty breakups and shitty relationships. So I do want to talk about a little bit of that. So, dating for me growing up kind of looked I dated girls when I was in school. But it wasn't anything serious. It wasn't long-term relationships. It wasn't it didn't even seem like a relationship. So I think I stopped dating when I was in my 8th grade or freshman year of high school. I stopped dating pretty early on just because I wanted to figure out my sexuality. So I did not date for a solid 2 years. I was more focused on school and working than I was about being in a relationship because I didn't really give two shits. So I did after my sophomore year, that was the year I came out, that's when I kind of started dating men and started going and doing my own little thing of experimenting with my I don't want to say experimenting with my sexuality, but started dating men and seeing, what I liked when it came to relationships and what I liked when it came to men. And so, my first relationship really with a guy, actually, the first guy I ever talked to, we never actually established a real relationship. But we did, I talked about that on my coming out story. We would FaceTime, we would talk every day, we would text, Snapchat, whatever it was back in my day. I sound so old. I think I was honestly 16 when I first started talking to guys. And so when him and I never really established a relationship, like I said. And so I don't really consider him my first relationship. And then from him, I kind of just talked to other guys. And, in the small town that I grew up in, there is very little gay. Like the community is very like small, and so obviously everybody that like you can date had pretty much everybody had dated each other. It felt like already, and so I felt like I was like fresh to the gay dating scene, and so my first relationship, I will not talk about names whatsoever. Me and him were, I mean, we dated for a very short period of time. Him and I were, he was a little bit younger than me. I was 16 and I don't even know how old, I don't really remember how old he was, you guys, honestly. I think he was like a freshman. And it was just, I mean, it was kind of like an experimental relationship for me because I was like, I don't even know what I want. Like, am I going to be like a dominant type? Am I going to be a submissive type? Am I going to be, I was still a virgin at the time, so I wasn't really looking to like lose my virginity right away. And so I didn't really know what the relationship was going to look like. And, we had fun together. Like we would, go on dates. We would go out to eat. We would hang out at our houses, like, because we didn't live that far from each other because we both lived in this tiny ass town. And so we did it for a little while. I remember, you guys remember like the first few times we hung out, it was just like, to be honest, like we would just like make out and we would just like hang out, watching movies. And I'm so sorry if my mom's listening to this. I don't even know if she knows any of this stuff. But that literally would be like what we did. And I remember like, you guys, this is not something I condone when you are dating or in a relationship. But I remember the first time like hanging out, I remember we were like making out outside and his dad came out and like freaked out, and I just ran away because I was like, oh my god, I can't do this. And like his dad ended up loving me, you guys. His dad actually knew my mom, and so it was just so funny. But like I definitely don't condone, don't run away from the parents of the person you're dating, you guys. Definitely establish a good relationship with them, because I personally think that if the parents are involved, like parents are a very important part of the relationship. So don't ever run away from the parents, you guys, because that is a stupid decision that I made. But yeah, that was like kind of my first relationship. We didn't really like, it was just like kind of like a younger relationship. We didn't really know where it was going. We didn't really, there wasn't like, we didn't have like a huge future planned or anything. Like I was so young and he was so young. So I don't think it was like this like extravagant, like we're going to be together forever. I think it was just more of like us both kind of experimenting in a relationship to kind of see what we liked and what we wanted. So that was like my first like relationship that actually had a title. And then after that, I kind of went back to, I mean, we broke up for, I don't even know why we broke up, honestly. I mean, it was just one of those relationships that I feel like we both didn't really like seem that it was like gonna work out, and like there was just like little issues that came up here and there. And so I don't think it was anything that like either person really did wrong. And so it was just kind of an end to the relationship. And so after that, I remember, because I was actually in that relationship, I was like pretty like dominant. And if you guys know me now, I am not a dominant person whatsoever. I'm very submissive. I'm very like petite, whatever you want to say. So that was probably a relationship I would have never lasted for me anyway, because that is just not my personality. And so I remember after that, I was like back onto like online dating at the time. And so for me, online dating back then was like not what it is now. I feel like online dating now is like Tinder. I mean, in the gay world, it's Grindr, which Grindr isn't really like online dating, in my opinion. I think that's more like hookup culture, which I will talk about a little bit as hookup culture. But back for me, it was, yeah, like, I mean, Grindr back when I was gay growing up was actually for like dating. It wasn't just for like hooking up, at least in my experience, it wasn't. And so back in the day, it wasn't like everything it is now. And so I went back to, I actually remember, I don't know if anybody remembers this app, but it's called Meet Me. That was the app that I used to like meet a lot of people. And so after I was like talking to people on there, I remember meeting my next boyfriend. He actually ended up living like 2 hours away from me, and we like were just, I don't know, we were so young, you guys, but like I remember it was just like such a good relationship. And it was like that relationship that I was like, oh my God, like I love this guy. Like I remember like we said love to each other. And in my opinion, you guys, I don't know how other people look at the word love, but love is a very, very, very big thing to me. I don't just say it like freely and just throw it out there. Be like, I love you. Unless it's like a friend or a family member. Like obviously I say I love you to all my friends, but like in a relationship, being in love with somebody is like very important to me. It's not something that I'm just like freely throw that word out. And so, for him, it was a relationship that like I felt like we were in love, and I felt like it was actually going to go somewhere. And this guy happened to be bi, and so this was actually the guy that took my virginity, and so I'm not going to get into that story because that is a story for another podcast. But I remember we like hung out all the time. Like I was actually working like a normal job, and he like lived 2 hours away for the summer, and then he was moving back to Georgia. So you guys, we had literally like the summer to like date and hang out and whatnot, and so we would hang out as much as we could if I wasn't working, and like I would pick him up, he would stay at my house, he met my family and everything, and so it was a really, really good relationship. And then I remember he went back to Georgia and we tried to make it work for long distance. And so if y'all know, Wisconsin and Georgia are not close together. And I was in high school, so I wasn't exactly just gonna hop on a plane and go visit him and whatnot. And the relationship ended like pretty much right after he moved back home because it was just like, it was a very, very shitty ending to the relationship. I remember that was like the first time I ever was like heartbroken of a relationship. And I was like, damn, this shit sucks. Like it was just really, really hard on me. And I remember like, I don't know, I always condoled him, condoled, is that the right word I'm trying to say? I would always go to my mom when something bad would happen. And so like, I feel like she was probably there through like all of that breakup, and it was just kind of really, really shitty. But then shortly after that, I got back into the dating game again, and then I was dating some older guys. I was 18 at the time. I remember I turned 18 and I was like, I'm gonna go date whoever the fuck I want. And so like I started dating older guys, not like old, like, so when I say older, like a few years older than me, like older, over 21, and I was like 18 or something like that. I remember dating a guy that lived like an hour away from me. He was a fucking asshole. Like I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna say names, I'm not gonna say where he lived or anything, but he was so mean to me. Like it was such a shit relationship, and I stayed in it for way too long. Like he broke up with me in the middle of it, broke my heart, and then was cheating on me the entire time, and then like we got back together, was cheating again, and it was just a really, really shitty relationship. And I just remember like it ended so horribly, and like I was so sad because like I was like, he's the one, you know, like being that dumb bitch. And it was just a shit show of a relationship. So that's kind of like, I mean, after him, I remember just going on like little dates here and there. I never really got into like the hookup culture days of anything, of like Grindr and like gay dating. Just wasn't something I was ever into, because I was like, I don't know, sex always scared me when I was younger, and so like I never got into any of that. But I remember like dating a few other people here and there, and then that's when I actually met Gage, was during actually that like shit relationship. I actually met him during that time, and so I happened to be in the relationship when I was dating. Or when I met Gage, I was in a relationship already, so I didn't really want anything to do with him. And then later on, I actually was single, and then we added each other on social media, and then it's kind of just happened from there, and it's been 6 years strong, y'all. So yeah, I mean, I think that relationship kind of just came out of nowhere with Gage and I. I think that's what happens to a lot of people, is relationships that kind of just come out of nowhere, and they end up being a lot better than you think. And sometimes the relationships aren't as good as you might think they are supposed to be. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like my dating history a little bit. That's kind of like my first few relationships. Like I said, I've been in a relationship now for 6 years, so I don't even know what it would be like to go back to the dating game now. I have a lot of friends that are in like the dating, pool. I have lots of family and whatnot. I've seen people go through horrible, horrible breakups, and I've seen people go through divorces and whatnot. Like there is just so much that I've seen. And so I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what inspired me to kind of want to talk about this episode and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, that's like my relationship history, you guys. It's not exactly like exciting or anything because like I said, I never really dated as much. But there's a lot of other things I want to talk about within like dating and relationship world. Dating men versus women, you guys, like that is something that we can talk about. Is like there's definitely a difference in my opinion. I mean, obviously, like when I was dating girls, like I wasn't in like committed relationships, like if that makes sense. I wasn't like in like long term, like it was just like a dating to date kind of thing, like that you do when you're in school. And I think, I mean, obviously I don't have a lot of experience on this topic right now of dating men versus women, but I definitely think there's like a difference, because I feel like when like, I don't know, I feel like there's always this stigma within like a man-woman relationship that like the man is like the man and they have to take care of the woman and everything like that. And then when you go to a man-on-man relationship, it's like there's not really that, like that's not really a thing in some relationships. Like I personally, like when it comes to dating Gage and Nick, like I don't feel like either of them have to take care of me. I don't feel like every time we go out to eat, they have to pick up the bill. Half the time that we go out to eat, I pick up the bill, because I mean, we all have like separate bank accounts, like, but like, I don't know. I don't think that's like a thing of like the dominant one has to pick up the bill or anything like that. I think that's such a weird stigma around like man and women relationships. Is that like the man has to take care of everything. Obviously, like, I don't know. I just think that's such a weird stigma. But like, I think there is definitely like a difference. And obviously, like, there's like bisexual people who like date both. And so like, that is something that, I don't know, they have to like navigate that in a way. I think there's always like a preference, not preference. I shouldn't say preference because they're bisexual for a reason. But yeah, I mean, I just think that's like such an odd stigma. And I think there is like a difference of dating men versus women. Like, obviously dating, it's just different, you know? I want to talk about dating older versus younger is, you know, I've done both. Like, I've dated older guys and then I've dated younger guys. I'm actually dating an older and a younger guy right now because Gage is younger than me and then Nick's older than me. And I don't know, sometimes there is a difference. Like, sometimes when you date older, like the older guys or girls, whatever your preference is, I feel like sometimes they are more mature and like the relationship can be like they're more experienced, like they're more like seasoned, if you may, seasoned in life. And so I feel like sometimes dating older, like they're a lot more mature, and so sometimes it can be a little bit better if that's what you prefer. Is you want like somebody who's mature, you want something like long term and whatnot. And then dating someone younger, you know, I've dated a few younger guys, and I mean, most of the younger guys that I dated when I was growing up were very immature, and that's kind of why the relationships ended. And so like for me, I mean, Gage is younger than me, but like you guys, once I have Gage on this podcast, you guys will see that he is like an old man at heart, and he's like very like old manish for like his age. Like, he's only 22. He's only 2 years younger than me, so that's not even that much, but he is very like just like an old man in his ways. So, but yeah, like I think sometimes dating younger, the person can be a little bit more immature, and then dating older, the person can be more mature. That's like kind of my difference that I personally have experienced. I mean, I would say for me though, like I am young-ish, like I'm like almost my mid-20s. That sounds disgusting. I don't even want to say that, you guys. I'm gonna be 25 this year. Ew. But yeah, I mean, sometimes when I'm dating older, like the guy might look at me and be like, oh my God, he's like immature. And I definitely will say when I was growing up and I was like dating when I was like 18, like I was very immature. Like, I just wanted attention. And so like, I don't know, it came off as very immature, and that's probably why some of my relationships might have ended, or some of my datings might have ended. So I don't know, but that's like my personal experience when it comes to dating older and younger, is sometimes it can be mature, immature. You know, older might want like a long-term type of thing, and then younger might not really look at that type of thing. So definitely figuring out what your preference is on that. Like, I obviously, when it comes to dating older versus younger, if you are under the age of 18, please do not date somebody that is over the age of 18, because like that is just, I feel like that is kind of a shit show, because it's illegal, quite literally. And I mean, there's so many different like things around, like, you know, is it, you know, I don't even know what the right word is, but like it's literally illegal, you guys. So just keep yourself safe when it comes to dating older. If you're literally 17 years old, don't go and date somebody who's like 40, because like they're probably not dating you for the right reason. So just keep yourself safe if you are the type of person doing that. And then once you're over 18, y'all are free to go do whatever the hell you want. Now, I want to talk about dating now and like the, you know, that time that we're in, like 2023, 2022, like the 2020s. You guys, like, I feel like it is very different than when I was dating growing up, because when I was dating growing up, like, it was obviously still in the 2000s, but like, for me, it wasn't like, I feel like hookup culture wasn't as big of a thing back when I was growing up, at least not for me, versus like now. Like, I feel like hookup culture is like everything. Like, I feel like that's all dating is nowadays, is like hookup culture. And so it's like kind of different. Like for me, I can't even imagine going back to the dating world. Like, I don't even know how it would be, because I've been in a relationship for so long that it would just be so weird for me. So I definitely think like dating now is like a lot harder, because I think it's more like online dating. Like Tinder is a really big thing. I mean, there's Bumble now, there's Grindr, like there's so many different things now, you guys, that like, but there is a lot more options, I will say, because like I feel like now dating online, like there's specific sites based on like what you prefer. I mean, there's so many like different dating sites that are targeted towards certain things. So like there's like I'm sure there's like a Christian site. There is like a Farmers Only. We've all heard of that. I don't know if y'all have heard of that, but that's a big thing back in Wisconsin that people talk about all the time. But like there's like specific dating sites based on like what you're looking for. And like there's so many different like ways to like filter your dating life now online, which is kind of weird, because I feel like dating online can be a little bit like scary. I think that it's easier to find like what you prefer in a relationship nowadays with dating online rather than like back when I was growing up. It was just kind of like talking to everybody and seeing who you vibed with. And like dating online wasn't really a big thing. Like for me, it wasn't, at least. Like I wasn't like going on like multiple dates. Like it was more of like just talking to people, getting to know them, and then hanging out from there and then seeing what it turned into. And now I feel like it's like, I don't know, like dating online can be a little bit scary because you just never know who somebody is, and like meeting them. Obviously, like my number one tip, you guys, with dating online is meet the person in public. I was somebody, when I moved down to Austin, Texas, I've had Bumble BFF for a while. That's how I made a lot of my friends here. And I always, and that's just for friends, you guys, like Bumble BFF is, Bumble dating is for dating, but always meet the person in public. If you can, always bring somebody with you. Like for me, doing Bumble BFF, I would always bring Gage with me when I was meeting up with people when I first moved here. So definitely recommend always meeting in public just to be safe, and don't meet like super late at night. Meet in the daytime at like a restaurant or something. That's my number one tip when it comes to online dating, because you just never know who somebody is. Like you hear so many stories nowadays of like scary stuff happening. So just keep yourself safe, keep yourself protected, especially if you are someone who might be like an easier target. Like I know like women are very targeted, you know, like smaller men can be targeted. So just keep yourself safe. You know, if you feel like you need to carry something around with you, like to keep yourself safe, then go do it. There's so many options nowadays of like, you know, stuff to put on your keychains to be safe. Go get yourself a pepper spray. Those are completely legal to carry around. So just keep yourself safe always when it comes to that online dating. Always meet in public. Yeah, it's definitely different than what I am used to growing up, I guess, and like the hookup culture and everything. Like hookup culture is like insane to me. Like how like many people will just like want to hook up and not date whatsoever. Like it's just, and I feel like there's so many excuses too with it. Like they're always like, oh, I'm just not like ready for a relationship or whatnot. And like I don't know. I guess I just don't understand it. Like, I mean, I had Nick on last week, and like he was like talking about that of like they're like, oh, I'm just not ready for a relationship. Like that's such a common thing now that happens, I feel like. So I don't know, it's like kind of odd to me of like the hookup culture nowadays, and like it's just very weird. I don't know. It's very different. So but definitely don't just like give up on dating, you guys, because I feel like that's something that like eventually you're gonna come across the right person. And you just never really know what's going to happen from there. And that kind of leads me into my next topic of like loyalty in relationships, is like when you find that right person, just stay loyal. Like I feel like that is such a big thing of like cheating and whatnot. Like, and I do want to talk about cheating like as a whole topic in general, because I've been through stuff with cheating and whatnot. Like not me personally, I have not done any cheating myself, y'all, but I've been cheated on in past relationships, and then I've seen people get cheated on and whatnot. And so that's like a whole topic. But like just staying loyal, you guys, like it's really not that hard to stay loyal in a relationship. Like if you're not committed to the person and you feel like you need to go cheat, just break up with them. Like I don't understand why people stay in a relationship and then go cheat. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like just break up with the person if you're not going to stay loyal to them. So but like staying loyal in a relationship, like just stay loyal, you guys. Like it's really not that hard. And so like I just don't get it. Like that's kind of my advice on that, is just like staying loyal in a relationship, because obviously like well, that is something also I wanted to say, is like when you're dating, in my opinion, I don't know if people like will agree with this exactly or if other people think this way, but when it comes to how I was dating growing up and how I still date if I was single, I'm dating obviously long term now. But like date for long term, date for marriage. Like don't be dating just to date and like having fun and fucking with people's emotions. Like date long term, like date to get married. Like that's something that I will always stand by, is like you should always be dating to marry or dating for long term, because not everybody wants to get married. That is something, like, even though you guys, I've been in a relationship for 6 years and I'm literally engaged to Gage, we don't really want to get married that bad. Like obviously our feelings might change later on, but like as of right now, we don't have any plans to get married. So like I'm still dating like long term though. Like I'm dating Gage for the long run. I'm dating Nick for the long run. And so it's like one of those things of like just make sure you're dating for the right reasons. Don't just date to have, you know, somebody there or whatever. Like just make sure that you're dating for the right reasons. Make sure you're dating that person for the right reasons and staying faithful to them and staying loyal to them always. Like that's like my advice on it, is just date long. Like you don't have to stay in every relationship long term if it comes to it being like a bad relationship, but just make sure that you're dating for the right reasons and you're dating to, you know, see a future with that person or want to marry that person and whatnot. So next thing I want to talk about in this, you guys, I have so many topics for this and I'm like just going through them so quickly because I feel like I talk so fast. But I want to talk about leaving a relationship, because at the same time that I talk about loyalty and like staying in a relationship, at the same time I'm talking about that, I want to also talk about like the fact of not just staying in a relationship to be in a relationship, because I see so many people do this, you guys. So many people date, or they'll stay in a relationship even if it's a shitty relationship, just to be in a relationship. I have done this over and over and over before I met Gage. I've stayed in really bad relationships just to be dating, because I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to be single. I didn't want to go back into the dating world or whatever. And I would stay in a relationship. And also, I'm the type of person that, like, I don't break up with people. I've never broken up with somebody because it terrifies me. Like, I would rather stay in a bad relationship and just never break up with the person. So make sure that if you're in a shit relationship, or if there's bad things happening, I'm not one for just end it right away. Like, talk to the person, have open communication with whoever you're dating, because if you have an issue in a relationship, it's never going to be solved if you don't tell them about it. Like, that is something I've learned in the 6 years of dating, is if you got an issue, talk about it. Communication is the key to a solid relationship, like 100%. Like, I don't it's always going to be number one in my opinion, is communication, because I think communication builds everything else in a relationship. So if there's something bothering you in your relationship, make sure you're talking to your partner about that, because that's what's going to get you through those things. But I mean, if there is something that in a relationship that, you don't like it, and the communication is, you can't talk about it. If you're in an abusive relationship, or a mentally abusive relationship doesn't just mean physical, you guys. Like, I think that's something that's important to say. But if you're in like an abusing situation, or you're in like a relationship that just isn't good for you, it's okay to leave a relationship. Be strong and leave the relationship, and make sure that you're doing whatever makes you happy at the end of the day, because I would rather see someone being happy and single rather than staying in a relationship pretending to be happy. Like, that's my advice on that, is don't ever be afraid to leave a relationship. I'm not saying that if you're in a great relationship, just go leave now because you want to go fuck whoever and hook up. Just make sure you're in the relationship for the right reasons, and make sure you're not staying in the relationship for the wrong reasons, okay? Ups and downs in a relationship, you guys. There is going to be so many, like, any relationship, you're gonna have ups and downs always. You always have to think about those. Like, this is a piece of advice that I got from somebody. This isn't even about dating, but I'm going to use it for dating because it's the same thing. Is there's always going to be peaks and valleys in your life. When you're in those peaks, you're doing great. When you're in those valleys, it's really bad. But you have to know when you're in the valley that you're going back up to the peak. So if that doesn't make sense to you guys, when you're in the highs and the lows, if you're in a high, you're going to feel great. If you're in the low, you're going to feel like shit. But also, when you're in that low, just know you're going to go back up to the high. So same thing in the relationship. When you're in those ups and downs, those downs can always go back up. Like, always just know that if any issue can be solved in a relationship, typically, that's, like I said again, don't just end a relationship just to end it. Try to communicate and get through those issues together. When it comes to the relationship, obviously, if it's something that's unsolvable and you guys both decide that, it's better to go separate ways, then go for it. But there's always going to be ups and downs in relationships. You guys, I have been with Gage for 6 years now. There has been many, 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 many ups and downs in our relationships, in our relationship. We've gone through a lot of shit together. We've gone through, finances together. We've bought cars together. We've moved multiple times together. We moved across the country together. Like, we've done family shit together. We're engaged. Like, there's just so much that we've gone through together. And those are all kind of like highs and stuff, but behind the scenes, I feel like there's a lot of lows to our relationship as well that we've gone through, but nothing that we couldn't get through. Like, any ups and downs that we've been through, and same thing with Nick. Like, there's been, Nick's relationship is so new, you guys. We haven't really had any like down moments. But any downs that come up in a relationship, I feel like they can always be worked through. And so always fight for those things, and just recognize when those things are up and down, because like, that's like a thing for me in relationships. When, when there's an issue, when you guys are fighting and whatnot, just recognize those times and just communicate about it. Like, take time to cool off. Like, whenever I'm having an argument with Gage, like, we still argue to this day, you guys. Like, there's still things that we argue about. If we're arguing, we both are kind of hard-headed. We get kind of angry, and I just kind of let ourselves cool down for a little bit. If it's overnight, if it's a day, if it's a few hours, let yourself cool down, and then, go and talk about it, communicate about it, and just be open and honest. Like, that's something that you just have to. Like, you have to be open with your partner and just let them know, what's going through your head. Because if you're holding it in, how are they ever going to know how to solve the issue or help you in any way? You have to talk about it and be open with them. So whenever you're going through those downs, you guys just be honest, communicate, let yourself cool down. Don't ever let it get into like a heated screaming argument, because those screaming arguments aren't going to solve anything, because neither of you are going to listen to each other. Like, it's just a shit show. So don't ever get into those screaming arguments. Just, talk about it later on when you guys have cooled down a bit and you guys can communicate, because communication, like I said, is number one, it's key. But yeah, just recognize those downtimes and recognize those uptimes, because the uptimes are going to be great, the downtimes are going to be shit, but it's always going to go back up. If you guys are taking the right steps to move forward, it's always going to go back up. Okay. And last thing I want to talk about is it's okay to be single, you guys. Like, I know this whole episode has been about dating, relationships, and whatnot. It's okay to be single. I see so many people out there being single and thriving right now. Like, good for y'all. Like, hot girl summer, go for it. Like, it is what it is. Like, you can be single, you can be happy single. I feel like that's something that people like don't think that they can be happy and single. Like, you can, you really, really can, you guys. You can be single, you can go do your thing, you can, be on your own, support yourself, whatever. Like, you can find a lot of self-love when it comes to being single. You can also find self-love in a relationship, but like, I think when you're single and, independent and whatnot, you find a lot of things that you love about yourself. You find out a lot of things just about yourself in general. So it's 100% okay to be single. Take time to figure out things for yourself before you get back into the dating world. Or if you are dating now, just make sure that you're doing things that make you happy. Make sure you're doing that. That's like my number one piece of advice right there, you guys. Just make sure that you're making yourself happy before you just jump into a relationship, because it's not like, I don't think you should be in a relationship if you're not happy with yourself. You should always love yourself first. Obviously, if you're in a relationship and you're going on this self-love journey, you can do both at the same time, you guys. But it's 100% okay to be single. It's okay to be in a relationship. It's okay to not get married. It's all of that stuff is okay, you guys. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about today with dating and relationships. Obviously, like, there is so much to relationships, you guys. Relationships are never like super duper easy, but if you work through those things together, it's gonna be okay. And dating is sometimes fun, sometimes it's a shit show. I've had my fair share of horrible dates, I've had my fair share of horrible boyfriends. So it's okay, you guys. It's okay. Everything is a learning experience in life when it comes to relationships, dating, being single. Everything you're gonna learn from. So take everything as a learning experience. Always know that those highs and lows of life are always going to be up and down, up and down. And yeah, you guys, that's kind of what I got for you guys today. As always, you guys go follow the Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, all the social medias of the Say Gay Podcast. It's literally at the Say Gay Podcast. You can listen to episodes on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. We should have a visual this week because it looks like my phone has been working this whole freaking time. So I don't know what the heck. You guys, I'm also going to be investing in a camera pretty soon. I just haven't ordered one yet because I don't know anything about cameras. But yeah, I'm going to be ordering a camera soon, so we'll have better video quality, and hopefully it will be no more glitches. But yeah, you guys, I'm excited. Next few weeks, like I said, I'm going to be having guests on because I'll be home for a while. I'll be in a different podcasting area. I'm not even going to be in this office for the next week. I should be, because I don't leave till next week. So but yeah, I'm going to be interviewing a lot of different people in the next coming weeks, so I'm excited, you guys. I love having guests on here because I think you guys get to hear from different types of people, and so it's so much fun. So yeah, but you guys go watch the Instagram. You guys, if you don't follow the Say Gay Podcast on Instagram, definitely go follow it, because I'm going to be dropping the merch, everything on there once I get it all figured out, because it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. Like, there's a lot more to it. So I'm working with a lot of people right now to get that all figured out for you guys, but merch will be coming out soon. So go watch the Instagram for that. You guys, if you want to follow me, all my socials are at callme.tobes. You guys can follow me, you can follow podcasts. But yeah, I love you guys. I will talk to you guys next Wednesday, and I love you guys.